Hello, BookTube. I'm having a slumptious week, and I thought I'd make a slumptious Friday reads. It's been rough. Monday and Tuesday of the week, I sort of tried to work up my energy to read a book, but it didn't work. And then Wednesday, I started a book, and the title was really long, so I bailed on it. So I don't really have much to tell you about this Friday. Just kidding, BookTube. We have lots of books to go through. Right, so it's Friday reads. I'm going to go through a portion of the books I'm going to read this weekend. The first one being something that, a name that a lot of you will recognize that I did not. The name is Tessa Grattan, and the book is The Queens of Lear. This is, despite its appearance, and despite the lettering, and despite the picture, this is billed as her first adult fantasy novel. She's apparently a YA author. I don't think I've ever read her work in that genre. But now she's got this great big thing. I mean, this is big anyway, and the typeface is really small, so this is a huge novel that is her debut and hopefully breakout work of adult fantasy. Sort of, as you can tell, sort of a take on the King Lear story, Three Daughters. And you might think getting an adult fantasy novel and a big, beautiful hardcover from Tor would make her happy, and that maybe people reminding her too much of her YA roots might irritate her. But from the look of things, I'm thinking she can't get any more irritated. so I think all bets are off. But I'm always up for an author stretching their wings. And I'm also always up for a Shakespeare pastiche. So this is on the docket for this weekend. Then something we've seen on this channel that I'm bumping up to the front of the weekend. That's this Darwin Comes to Town, about urban evolution, about the changes to animal species that are brought about by the urban setting that is now so much of humanity. And animals don't just stay in the wilderness. They come where the food is. They come where the prey is. And as a result, they change. And I think the whole subject is so fascinating. I read a little bit of this and just wanted to read more, so it's on my list for the weekend. Because, granted, I live in a fairly natural part of the greater Boston metropolis. There are parts of the greater Boston metropolis that are sidewalks and parking lots and apartment buildings, and that's it. And in this section of the greater Boston area, there's lots of green space, lots and lots of it, natural and man-made. So there are lots of animals. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you don't need a lot of green space to be surrounded by more animals than you think. But here, right now I have a little puppy who sleeps all night long. But when I had two sick old dogs, we had to go out every hour, all night long, every night. And when you're out, when you're taking two very quiet, nearly blind old dogs, they're not barking, they're not chasing after anything. When you're taking them very quietly down to the end of the driveway and walking them around the field across the street, you will see raccoons, you will see possums, you will see skunks, lots and lots of skunks. And those animals never exist in a vacuum. If you see a lot of raccoons, then you have hawks and you have coyotes and foxes. You have things that will eat raccoons. It's not just the prey animals are never the only ones to enter an area. And so I know I'm going to find this book fascinating because it'll probably synthesize lots of studies that I don't know anything about. Then the next one is a police procedural. This is American by Day by Derek Miller. And this is the sequel to his book Norwegian by Night, which I think I hauled on this channel ages ago, and which I read and which annoyed me. It was a kind of a glum police procedural where there's a crime, but there's no crime solver and there's no electricity at all. It was just, we'll just sort of muddle through and the guilty party will eventually be discovered. And this moves its show to America. So I will give it a try. None of these will be great investments of time. The next one is a little bit down the line. This is a debut novel. It's The Optical Illusion. So we have Tessa Grattan, who is doing. I mean, it's not her first novel, but it's her first novel in a new genre. This is Rachel Halliburton's very first book. with a really cute, a really neat cover. And this is due in June, I think. It's got crossouts all over. Okay, it's got a crossout on the spine for the due date. It's got a crossout on the back, so I'm betting that the date is changing, but it's the summer sometime. And it's about Benjamin West, which is kind of strange. Let me see if I can. It is 1797, and in Georgian London, nothing is certain anymore. The future of the monarchy is in question. The city is in flames with conspiracies, and the French could invade any day. Amidst this feverish atmosphere, the American painter Benjamin West is visited by a dubious duo comprised of a blundering father and a vibrant daughter, the Provises, who claim to have a secret that has obsessed painters for centuries, the Venetian techniques of the master painter Titian. West was once the most celebrated painter in London, but he hasn't produced anything of note in years, so against his better judgment he agrees to let the intriguing Anne Jemima Provis visit his studio and demonstrate the techniques from the document that she has in her possession. What unravels reveals more than West has ever understood about himself, the treachery of the art world, and the seductive promise of greatness. And that really intrigued me. So this is due. It's not coming out for months, but I'm going to read it anyway, and then I'll read it again when I get the finished copy. And I'm wondering. Sometimes I've noticed that when I tempt fate responds. This is about the American painter Benjamin West, and I'm wondering now if in my used book travels in the next few days or the next few weeks, I'm going to encounter a book on Benjamin West or a biography of him. We'll see. I'll report back. The next two are rereads. The first one being this. This is Elizabeth Winder's Marilyn in Manhattan, which is, the subtitle is Her Year of Joy, and it's coming out in paperback. I'm going to reread it in paperback. I not only read it when it first came out, but reviewed it. But that the publisher didn't see fit to quote my review on the paperback. But I love the book. I really did. I thought that the author made gold out of what seemed on the surface a fairly slight subject. A year that Marilyn Monroe spent in Manhattan, where she picked up stakes from her Hollywood career and moved to the East Coast. And I thought it was really touching. It's surprisingly touching. I think that way too much is made of Marilyn Monroe, to put it mildly. Way too much. So I'm always leery when some new book takes us inside her mind, or the hidden Jean-Paul Sartre inside her soul. But this really was a touching portrait of a young woman who, for a brief time, thought about simply reinventing her life, just completely reinventing her life. And that was fascinating in a way that I didn't expect. And then the next one's a big thing. I'm looking forward to rereading it. It impressed me when I read it originally. It's Kennedy and King by Stephen Levington, and this is a book about the interactions or lack thereof between Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy. And I read it and loved it when it first came out, and I reviewed it, and there is a nice Christian Science monitor blurb on the inside. But I think I would profit from reading it again, so I'm gonna take it up. And then the next one is new. It's a science study, and I love those. And this is The New Chimpanzee. It's by Craig Stanford, and the subtitle is A 21st Century Portrait of Our Closest Kin. And this is like with the Darwin Comes to Town. This is no doubt going to synthesize a lot of relatively recent research that I don't know about. So that will be fascinating. I'm trusting that the author is a professor of the history of science, so I'm trusting that he will not give in to the hint in the subtitle about the chimpanzees being Homo sapiens' closest kin. That might be true, but it's still pretty distant kin. It always amazes me when people think, well, I read a book just the other day, or no, last year, I read a book where the author just matter-of-factly refers to humans as naked chimps. Humans are biologically extremely different from chimpanzees, and they are from us. There are enormous differences. Humanity's closest kin doesn't exist anymore because humanity is a murderous species, not just a homicidal species, but a genocidal species, and killed off all the other species of humans. everywhere they found them. So Homo sapiens did that, and Homo sapiens did that because it was better at communicating, so better coordinated crowd action, and also better at tool manipulation, so better weapons making. That's all. Not because they were bigger or stronger. Half our human cousins were bigger and stronger than we were. It's just because in the weird, complicated, broad process of evolution by natural selection, the process for humanity dropped a stitch. So our forebrain grew enormously. Our abilities with spatial awareness and with positing actions into the future, and with language and with dexterity and cultural coordination, advanced in evolutionary speaking an eye blink of time to an astonishing level, something that allows you to invent a computer. And the one of the unexpected side effects that came along with that was equally genetic. It was a warping of the human psyche, so that a little human child, a little child who has not been socialized one way or another, much less abused, if a little child is walking along a path and sees a bug, a little human child will instantly stomp it dead. And not just that. They won't just stomp that one bug dead. They'll look around to stomp as many bugs as they can. And that little child, if you were to somehow make him aware of the whole concept, if you were to ask him, would you like to stomp dead every one of those bugs in the whole world? He'd say yes. Instantly, he'd say yes. Which is why humanity is the only species that ever has had genocides. And our nearest kin are those species that we hunted and burned and killed to extinction everywhere in the world. So chimpanzees are, they're part of a different branch. There's a fairly wide gap there. But I think that will make this all the more interesting to read. So I can't wait to get to it. I will probably make this and the Darwin book come relatively early in the weekend, today or tonight. The only thing that I worry about, I was looking at the chapters of this thing when I was trying to decide, and the last chapter is called Ape into Human. And that makes me worried. But I think I'm in good hands with this author. And then the last thing is also a reread. Oh my God, though. It's the mother of all rereads. It's new. It's the new Library of America, Norman Mailer. This is his writing from the 60s in 2 books. So one of the books has 4 books. An American Dream, Why Are We in Vietnam, The Armies of the Night, and Miami and the Siege of Chicago. And then the other volume has essays. Just tons and tons of essays, including lots of book reviews. So a lot of this is rereading for me. I, for instance, have read all the books, but I will happily read them again. And a lot of the essays are very familiar to me. Some of them have been anthologized a million times. But a lot of those book reviews, I'd be willing to bet I either didn't read them when they first came out in the New York Review of Books, or it's been since then. It's been 50 years since I read them. So this is going to be a reread, yes, but it's going to feel a lot like a new read. And there you have it. That is my Slumptious Friday reads. So we have The Queens of Lear, then Darwin Comes to Town, American by Day, The Optical Illusion. Titian didn't really have any Da Vinci Code secrets, but I'm not going to spoil that for the book. Then Marilyn in Manhattan, reread. Kennedy and King, also a reread. Then The New Chimpanzee, and then technically more rereads, but there'll be a lot. It'll feel new, and that's Norman Mailer, and that is going to commence tonight. This afternoon, I've got tons and tons of writing and emailing to do, but as soon as midnight strikes, I shall turn into a pumpkin and address these immediately. So as usual with the Friday reads, let me know what you're reading, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.